Hey everyone, welcome back to the Successful Lead Generating Coaches Show. My name is Arfan, and I am here with a very special guest. I have Amir. Amir, how you doing today, man?
I am good. Awesome to be here. Thanks for
Awesome.
inviting me.
Awesome. Very cool. So Amir and I connected back last year, December, and I quickly found out that Amir is one of the foremost experts when it comes to men's fitness. Not only that, but fitness for entrepreneurs. And you get a lot of people online who kind of say things they have no idea what they're talking about. Influencers who have great genetics and they put the work in, but Amir truly is a scientist when it comes to this stuff. And I quickly realized that just after a short conversation. He's also the author of the Alpha Method, which is for entrepreneurs. So if you're an entrepreneur, this is on Amazon, correct, Amir?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. And this has truly been, our conversations in this book has truly changed my life because I've been on my own weight loss and fitness journey for quite a while. And I probably had the most progress over these last 7, 8 months that I've had my entire life, and it's really due to some of the conversations. So when I say I'm super thankful to have you on here, I truly mean it. I am super thankful to have you on here. So
My
I
pleasure. Thank
appreciate you.
you. Yeah, my
So
pleasure.
so the fact that I'm already probably a case study can save us a lot from trying to share your expertise. But nonetheless, I want to turn it over to you. Can you tell us a little bit about you, your background, and also how you became to be a coach for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, great question. So long story short, I'm from Bosnia, small country in Southeast Europe. And we had in the early 90s, we had a very unfortunate war. So during the war, like there's no food, so we were all starved, and I had like 100 pounds or something as a 13-year-old. And after the war, we were all starved, so we started eating. And within like year and a half after the war, I gained over 100 pounds. So I was 220 at age 13, right? So I was a
Wow.
I was a very fat kid, and had all kinds of issues like knee problems, doctors telling me, hey, as a 13-year-old, you have fatty liver disease. I'm like, what the hell is fatty liver disease? And which is basically just one of the side effects of being overly fat, right?
Yeah.
So because of that, I really wanted to lose weight. So I tried every single thing, as a 13-year-old. This is pre-internet, there's no coaches. We didn't have any money for any of that. So the only thing I had was try every single fad that I can find. And at the time, I didn't know what fad were. Or what a fad is. I was just like, oh, there's a diet. Don't eat carbs. Excellent. I eat protein and fat. Don't eat fats. I don't eat fats, so I've tried every single thing and that existed at the time over the span of like 5, 6 years. And every single time I would lose a little weight and gain more back.
Mm-hmm.
So, and actually later on, 10, 15 years later, there were studies that on this particular topic that showed the best way to become obese is to constantly hop from one fad diet to the other, yo-yo diet to a higher weight, and then eventually, because people don't become obese over 3 months. It's not
No.
like you weigh 150 pounds, tomorrow you weigh 250. No, that 100 extra pounds was years and years and years in the making. And usually the saddest part of all that is that people are genuinely working at it. Like they're putting so much effort and energy and suffering into these, horrible, stupid fad diets, and they
Yeah.
just end up with weighing more, right? So
Mm-hmm.
eventually, after nothing has worked, I went to pharmacy school, studied for the master's in pharmacy. My thesis was on protein synthesis because that was actually the only thing that I was interested in was human physiology and anatomy. Anatomy is literally what and how the body works, and human physiology is the greatest branch of science, if you ask me. I think it's just like if I had a job, if I was ever able to have a job, I would be a professor of physiology, like nothing else. I would do nothing. I would just teach physiology because it explains literally everything in the body, how it works, why it works, what goes somewhere. So after pharmacy, I really fell in love and started studying nutrition. And then in another moment of weakness, I got a business degree when I went to the US. So at age 24, I got married and went to the US, moved to the US, and I lived there for 11 years. And after all the degrees and everything, I realized I don't want to have a job. I don't want to work for anybody. I just want to have my own business. And it just so happened that my greatest passion at the time was In the meantime, of course, I transformed my own body and used the science to become a professional triathlete. I became a 3-time national champion, pro athlete, and a Olympic Games candidate in triathlon. So I had successes in sports. And then also, from everybody knew me as a fat kid, and all of a sudden I'm looking like really good. And people are like, well, what are you doing? And I started just telling them what was it that I learned and what I was doing. And they're like, well, can you help me? And I was like, well, I guess I could. And that's
Yeah.
how the coaching was born. So that was 16 years ago. And I've never
Wow.
done anything else in my life. I've been a coach, basically a professional coach since then. And this is my life. I live and breathe this every day. I, work with clients, read more, learn more, because, learning never stops. Just when you think you know something, you realize there's so much of it to know that we are like utterly clueless about everything. So here we are, 1,200 success stories later. And I feel like I'm just getting started. So
This is awesome.
really, yeah.
Hey, thanks for breaking that down, man. I've heard this before, obviously, but those of you listening right now, first time hearing that, it's something to really just. I mean, he goes through it. It's a story. He goes through it very quickly. We break it down to go from a 230 plus pound chubby kid. I was there to know what that actually feels like, because you're not like a 6'1" tall man wearing this. You're typically 5'4", 5'5", 5'6", shorter, and you're still growing and developing. So it really is a crucial thing to be in that position to then become a national champion in triathlon is a feat on its own. So there's an expertise in just personal, but also being able to help over 1,200 other individuals is pretty huge. So Amir saw quite a bit, and in our conversation in the past, I've learned quite a bit from him. And what we're going to be talking about today is really going to be something special, because for those who listen, our business owners, whether you're in really good shape or you're trying to be in really good shape, you realize physical fitness is important to you. We're going to be talking to you about how to explode your business by becoming the strongest and fittest entrepreneur you can be. And I believe Amir is the foremost expert on this right now to help talk about that. So with that being said, Amir, why do you think physical fitness is so crucial for entrepreneur success?
So many reasons for that, but the most obvious ones are, I heard many years ago a quote that people or entrepreneurs think that they have a business problem, but they actually have personal problems that just reflect in their business. And
Wow.
let's just set up a most common scenario that I see every day, because I talk to entrepreneurs and coach entrepreneurs every day, and I am an entrepreneur myself. Imagine you wake up every morning, you are overweight, low energy, you just don't feel good, you don't look good, at least you don't think you look good, and you wake up in the morning like, oh, it's so hard to get out of bed, I didn't sleep well, I'm hungry, or I don't know if I'm hungry. Oh, and then you look in a mirror like, ah, I really, this gut is really like bothering me. If you think about the mindset and the way you feel about yourself in that moment, is that the go-getter attitude that you need to have in order to go conquer the world, build a bigger business, help more people?
Right.
No, it's not, right? It's just, and that's why I really believe that from the 3 big areas of life, which are health, relationship, finances, in that priority order, health is the foundation for everything else. Because very simple, just think about this. Let's take the 3 and imagine you don't have a business, you don't have money, and you don't have relationships, but you are in great health. Can you build a business? Can you learn the skills and build a business? Yes. Can you attract a good partner who is what you want? Yes. You can do all that if you are healthy. And I'm not saying you have to look like a fitness model, not at all. I'm just saying being actually healthy, having energy and feeling good about yourself. And this, obviously, that is different for different people, right? Like a bunch of my clients don't want to have, for example, 6-pack abs. It's not the goal. I'm like, I get it. This doesn't need to be the goal, right? What I want for my clients is, actually in the last 3 years, I've changed. It's just after, many years of doing that, getting another person in great shape. It's like, imagine you've done something 1,200 times, and now Arfan comes along and I'm like, hey, you're going to be 1,201st success story. Well, that's amazing. It's, 1,300 is better than 1,200, but that's not like, I've done that so many times that it's like, there's no, how do I say, there's no challenges in it for me. Like if you and I go on that journey together, like I'm going to coach you to get there, there is probably nothing that you can experience, think, be challenged with, that I have not heard already, and that I don't know ahead of time that's going to happen. So my next, goal was studying and really going deep into the science of longevity. So these days, I show my clients that when you get in great shape, yes, you have more energy. Yes, you feel better about yourself. Yes, your confidence goes through the roof, and that spills over in every other part of your life, including your business. You get more deals done. You show up differently. People trust you more. So, they're more likely to buy from you. They're more likely to partner with you. They're more likely to, include you in whatever, circles that you otherwise may not be. All of this is just simply just human nature. It's not, we can be pro that or against that. It's just how it works. Studies have shown that if you have a good looking guy on a trial for something, he is like 3 or 5 times more likely to be pronounced not guilty if he's a good looking person, right? And vice versa. If you have the most innocent person ever and all the evidence points that he's innocent, but he's kind of like not good looking, like he's an ugly person, everybody's like, that ugly dude, guilty.
Wow, man.
And that's literally how it works, because our brains are wired for that. Now, we cannot like that. I personally dislike that. I think it's terrible. But that's just how the world works, right? So if you show up and you look amazing, and you just look great, you radiate this energy and confidence, people are going to be more attracted to you. They'll be like, I want to do deals with that guy. I want to talk to him. That's just human nature, right? So why not play with that, given that there are 1,001 benefits to being in great shape and 0 downsides. I don't see any downsides other than the silly ones, like, if you're in great shape as a man, all the women are going to go after you, so your wife may get jealous, whatever. Those are the downsides, right? But they're really, very, very few of them. All the other ones are the benefits. So why not do that, right? And it's simply, it genuinely spills over in every, so my clients, more often than not, my clients tell me, hey, since in the last, usually 3-4 months that we work together or more, my business has grown. Why? Because they have more energy. They can actually either work more or they can be more productive, meaning get more done in the same time. So they're working the same as they used to, but they're more productive now. They get more stuff done because they have more energy, right? And then their confidence spills over into, again, as I said, more deals, more sales, more partnerships, more. It's just, it truly is what's the expression? The tide raises all the boats. It truly does, right? It's like, as you get in shape, it is impossible for that to not positively affect every part of your life, including your personal, relationships, the business, pretty much everything else. So it's just it's a win-win across the board.
I think a lot of people could probably see evidence of that. I know in my own journey, there's been up and downs just because of following the fads and following the low carb, the carnivore, the different type of things, which are all temporary in many cases, and seeing the effects of, hey, you lose 20 pounds and everything is just better. Everything is easier, lighter to do, and there's a lot more confidence that comes up. I think so. I feel like one of the big reasons entrepreneurs really struggle with this is like they struggle with like knowing what to eat. You think you mentioned like, well, what to eat, when to eat, how much exercise, things like that. So like for example, when an entrepreneurs who are struggling with what to eat, like what are some of the key principles that they should really be following when it comes to nutrition?
Great question. So the number one thing that is it's still to this day, after all of these years, mind-boggling to me that entrepreneurs are generally hardworking people. Because if you're an entrepreneur, you can't, and people can debate this all they want. You can't really be lazy and be an entrepreneur, because you have to be proactive, right? When you have a job, you go to your job and somebody tells you what to do. You just go there and you're told what to do. As an entrepreneur, you have to be proactive. You wake up in the morning, there's nobody there telling Arfan, hey, go do some marketing, run ads, do something. Like, nobody's saying that. So if you don't want to do that, if you're lazy, well, you won't be in business very long, right? So the sad part of all of this is entrepreneurs are very hardworking. I never ever need to tell my clients, hey, you got to work hard. It's like real entrepreneurs who built actual real businesses, they already know what working hard is. They're not only not afraid of hard work, which generally most people who are non-entrepreneurs are afraid of hard work to just avoid it. But the sad part is they're orienting and putting all of this work into the wrong things, such as fats, right? And they will spend years and years and years. Imagine how much time that is invested into carnivore diet, keto diet, paleo diet, fasting, whatever new fad comes along. And all of this to avoid, and this is usually unconsciously, to avoid one thing, which is they just need one skill, literally one skill. That one skill is you have to learn in some way to control the calories you consume. That's it. Now, I know everybody's heard that a million times. They're like, well, that can't be right. It can't be that simple. It's not simple at all, but it is true that you just need to control your calories. Again, way, excuse me, easier said than done, because controlling calories is, easy to say, much harder to do, but that's the number one thing. You just need to, I'll take the just out of it. You need to learn to control your calories in some way that works for you. So for example, let's say, you said, hey, I started doing fasting, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, right? Fasting has zero benefits or very, very small health benefits outside of calorie restriction. Meaning, what if you eat, for example, just for our audience, so you have maintenance calorie intake, which means a certain number of calories that maintains your body as it is now.
Yeah.
Right. And that number is different for every person, because each person, so let's say Arfan versus me versus, our wife, kids, neighbor, partner, we all have different amount of muscle, different genetics, different activity levels, different goals, different preferences. All of these things, how many steps we do, how much exercise we do, all of these things, when you combine them, they are making you unique. Like there's not one other person out of 8 billion people in the world who has the exact same combo of all of these as you do. That's why a custom-made diet specifically tailored for you is the best solution. And of course, you can see if you go on a carnivore diet, how is that tailored to our farm? It's not. It literally just says, don't eat any carbs. That's all it says. Now, of course, given that most people's 75% of an average American food intake or calorie intake is carbs. So what happens when you cut 75% of your food? You're in a huge calorie deficit, right? So you should be losing weight. However, what if on a carnivore diet, you start eating steaks and, blocks of butter and drinking olive oil because you are told calories don't matter? By the way, for our audience, every fad diet out there tries to cut your calories by basically trick you to cut your calories while telling you calories don't matter. And you probably heard this, carnivore zealots. Hey, calories don't matter, just cut all the carbs. That's what keto zealots used to say too. Fasting people say calories don't matter, just don't eat 16 hours a day, right? Yeah. Then in the 80s, it was, fats are horrible and carbs are amazing. So they used to say calories don't matter, just cut your fats and load up on carbs, it'll be fine, right? So they're all trying to say calories don't matter, when in reality, the only thing that actually matters more than anything else is calories. So, that is the number one thing that I would say to everybody: start tracking your calories. And you don't have to do this forever. No, even if you do this for 3 days, it will change your life. Why? Because every single client, I've never had an exception to this. Every single client of mine who starts tracking food concludes 2 things. 1, oh my God, I can't believe how many calories I'm actually eating. It's way more than I thought. Wink, wink, why are we all overweight? Yeah. Right? Because we think we eat way more calories than we think we do. That's number 1. Number 2 conclusion is, I can't believe the certain food that I thought was healthy actually has this many calories. Right? Which goes back to step 1 or thing 1, right? It's the same thing. We eat way more than we think we do. We're simply unaware of that. It's not a skill we come with. We don't know what that skill is, meaning we don't know how many calories we eat. So every single person listening to this, if I asked you, hey, do you know how many calories you ate yesterday? What is your answer going to be? No clue. No clue. No idea. Right? And it's okay. Nobody knows. I didn't know. You didn't. Nobody knows. We don't come with the skill. It's a new skill. We never needed this in the, 10,000 or however many thousand generations of humans we've had. We never needed that skill before. That's why we don't come with it. Why? Because we used to live in the wilderness, in the jungle, and the food was like, scarcity of food was a very real thing. Like if you and I are buddies, 10,000 years ago, and we're walking down the jungle and we catch an animal, we eat that, awesome, but maybe for the next 6 months, we won't find any food and we starve and die. That was a very legitimate, real option. That's why we didn't need the skill of how many calories, because scarcity of calories was a very real thing. Fast forward to today, the modern world, where we have the exact same body and mind, which is just eat, eat, eat. You can go into a regular foods, grocery store, and for $5, probably buy 5,000 calories of some, processed junk food.
Yeah.
5,000 calories, right? So now we are bombarded with way too many calories with the mindset of eat everything in sight because you might not get food tomorrow. So that, mismatch between our brain wiring, which is still the same, we're literally wired for the time that doesn't exist anymore. This modern world we're not wired for that. That's why 80% of adults are overweight, 40% are obese, and numbers are just getting higher every single year. So number one skill, number one thing to focus on, control your calories. Within that, number two, and actually that is the only two things you got to do, nothing else. Again, easier said than done, but these truly are the only two things. Like if you said in business, you really have to, figure out what people want and give it to them. Simplified, but that is true, right? Like there's so many nuances to how to do that, but figure out what people want, give it to them, and then find more people to give, the same thing that they want, right? Or if you put it differently, like business is three things. You got to market, get people to know about you, convert them to paying customers, sales, and then deliver what you promised. That's it, right? So many nuances, so much harder, million versions of each, but that is it. That's what business comes down to. Yeah, in this weight loss world, it's really two things. It's not even three, it's two. Control your calories, eat enough protein. That's it. And within that, every single person out there is eating more calories than they should be. That's why we're overweight. And two, they're not eating enough protein. I'm yet, after 16 years of doing this and 1,200 clients, I've yet to have one person come to me who's already eating enough protein. Nobody eats enough. So we overeat both fats and carbs. So carbs are not to blame. Carbs are not making us fat in isolation. Fats are not making us fat. We're overeating both of these. We're overeating carbs, overeating fats. We're under-eating protein. And that right there is the solution, right? Control your calories, which is going to be less than you eat now, and then eat enough protein, meaning eat more protein. And that's it. Easier said than done, but that is it. Like if there's two things to focus on, those are the two.
And I found that to be true because after we spoke back in December, I came back and I tracked about 5 weeks of tracking, like almost daily. I mean, I'll be honest, I missed a few days here and there, but I was tracking diligently. I even tracked over Christmas, and I consumed 5,800 calories on Christmas. No shame at all. It was just with all the desserts and all. I was like, whoa! I didn't even think about it, and I was like, oh, it makes sense why all the previous years the holidays is over and I'm 10 pounds heavier, and there's probably a similar statement for so many people, maybe more than 10 pounds or whatever the case is, right? So the tracking has played a big role, and I did realize those two things, like wow, it's the calories add up a lot quicker than I thought, and it was also way less protein than I even assumed. And when I got it dialed in, it was like, wow, I need to eat so much. It's like, especially eating cleaner and like taking away ultra high processed foods. It was like eating so much, I'm full. I can't even eat anymore, and I'm only 1,800 calories. And the other thing I realized is when I talk about calorie control, it was the fact that I have the basal, right? So my base, how much I need. But when I exercise, it adds so much more to it. Now that's an additional. If I do a workout that gives me 450 calories burn, like that puts me even more. So it's like I didn't even need to be in a deficit because the exercise just put me in a deficit. So I didn't even need to. And I was tracking my stuff, and I was just seeing the numbers go down, and I was like, oh man, I've been doing this wrong for so many years. I can't even believe it. So
and when you get those two things dialed in, it seems so simple, and you look back and like, it can't be this simple. What was I doing all these years? Right. But the thing is, nobody truly teaches or talks about this. Why? Because everybody's busy selling you the newest fad. Oh, calories don't matter, just don't eat carbs. You can eat. So this is literally what used to be in the early 2000s when keto diet became the thing. It was advertised as calories don't matter, eat anything you want. You can have 15 steaks a day, blocks of butter, 5 liters of olive oil every day, doesn't matter. And there's some couple of these zealots that were like hilarious back then, saying that if you eat 10,000 calories a day of oil, you won't get fat because calories don't matter. And it's like, what? So, and a person who doesn't know any better because they're like, okay, this is not what I do, I don't know. They listen to that and they're like, okay, this doctor or somebody's saying that calories truly don't matter. As long as you cut your carbs, it's fine. It's very, very, very confusing out there. Like if
Yeah.
I really empathize with, let's say an entrepreneur says, I've had enough, I really don't know what to do, and they go Google how to lose weight. I mean, the first few results are going to be ads for the current most popular fats, right? There's
Yeah.
going to be some carnivore zealot saying, don't worry, just, steaks all day, burgers and all this. And that person's gonna be like, well, I guess I can eat 5 steaks a day, 5,000 calories, no problem, sure. And of course, that's way more calories than they need. So they start gaining weight because they're now still in a surplus, right? Because you just replace the carbs with a lot of fat. Calories are still the same or higher. So they start gaining weight. So they're like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. There are all these people saying that carnivore is amazing. They're losing weight. I'm doing carnivore and I'm gaining weight. Well, what's behind is simple math. I always say your body is literally a math equation. That's all there is. Like I just do, when I calculate all this for clients, it's a math equation. It's just, math, like it's pure math. And then just like Dan Kennedy always says, 50% of marketing is math, 50% is psychology, right? The exact same thing is true in weight loss. 50% is math, that's the calories part. 50% is psychology, you're sticking to the calories. That's really all there is, right? And now, of course, there are nuances there. For example, with obese individuals, that math versus psychology is probably 10 to 90%. Because the math is relatively simple. They are so, they have so much fat to lose that it's really easy to lose it. However, the psychology is really, really messing it up and making it very hard. And this is why, very unfortunate, but don't quote me on it, but I think an obese woman has like 1 in 300 chance of losing weight. 1 in 300. That's the official stat. Like if you take 300 obese women and they all start any kind of diet, one of them may lose weight, 299 will fail. So why? Because that psychology part is so hard. And that's why I always say as a coach, I'm more of a therapist a lot of times, because truly the math is relatively simple. Like I do the calories, give it to you, here it is. If you could follow it, that's it. Just, if you could just plug into it and do it, awesome. But you will have challenges along the way. You'll be like, oh, maybe it's slower than I thought. Maybe 1 week you gained weight. You're like, what is going on? Well, it's just water weight. Don't worry about it. Right. So it's really that coaching and accountability that make it work or not. And the more overweight somebody is, the bigger percentage of that goal is achieved by focusing on psychology rather than just pure math. Because calories always work, but doing the calories, sticking to them, that's the hard part.
Yeah, you said something to me that really helped me out a lot, and it was one of those things where you had mentioned like the environment plays a big role, and why this is because you talked about the psychology, right? There's the other layer of psychology. There is the stressors where a lot of just either you get bored, you feel stressed, or there's a habit of you watch TV and you're snacking on something, and a number of them, right? But just one of the big things you said was just the environment. So it's just setting up my environment now to where I know that, okay, if I feel stressed, I'm going to want to start snacking or eat, or even if I'm watching a movie or family night with the family, we want to have some desserts or things like that. And it's like choosing better options. And in my tracking, this has played a big role because when I first started tracking without making any changes. I'm just looking to see what was happening. And then I started making changes based off of now what I was. And
good. That is the best way. Good job. Because then you see what the baseline is. If you just start tracking by making better choices, which is great, but then you don't know what was before. And then you can be questioning, well, maybe before I was actually also eating less, but not losing weight, which is not the case. You were eating way more than you think you did, right? So that is the right way. It's just good for you for having the patience to do that, right? Like you're just eating what you used to, but now you track and you're like, it's like, running ads and saying, hey, I run 5 ads and one of them is killing it, 4 are not. But I'm just going to let all of them run forever because it doesn't matter, right? It's like, no, kill the 4 that don't do anything, double the ad spend on the one that is working. That's literally what tracking food does. It shows you what the math is. And once you look into it, it's truly a relatively simple math equation. It's just, input, output. And then there's some moving parts, like your steps change every day, whether you exercise or not, what kind of exercise you do, lifting weights versus cardio. The calorie expenditure rate is different on these. For let's say one day there's actually now a classic study on steps. So they took one person So same exact individual. It was Friday, the work day, right? So that woman, this is actually a woman, she went to work. So she woke up, drove to work, worked like 10 hours, came back, was dead tired, came home, watched Netflix, whatever, went to sleep. To her steps, I don't know, 1,500 a day. The next day, Saturday, she had a party at night. So she woke up early, cleaned the house for like 3 to 4 hours, all, cleaning the whole house. Then she went grocery shopping, came back, prepared all the food, and then had the party and dancing, all this. She did 20,000 steps that day versus the other day. So the difference was 1,000 calorie difference in 2 days of the same exact person. 1,000 calories. That is, imagine 1,000 calorie a day difference. That is huge, right? Yeah. So that's why there's huge, what they call, inter variability between each individual. Imagine what that difference is between different people, right? If you take 100 people, everybody has different habits of when they walk, how much they walk, what their overall activity levels are. So we have to adjust for that, right? So that's why I always have for my clients the baseline. So let's say, I said, hey, Arfan, how many minimum steps can you do per day? And you're like, well, I can do a minimum of 7,000. Okay, in our math calculations, I assume that you're going to do 7,000 every day. And I do the math based on that. If you do more, awesome. You're just going to lose more body fat than we predicted. Hallelujah. Yeah. We're not going to be, we're not going to be pissed off about it. We're going to be happy. So that's what I suggest, because there are, obviously people normally do more activity, but they also eat more on the weekends. That actually studies have shown that people who are trying to lose weight and are on some kind of diet or some kind of regimen, they do relatively well Monday to Friday. And then they mess it up
comes around
on the weekends. Yeah, right. It's like, and then the study literally said people get fat on the weekend, right? Because they eat, 4,000 or 5,000 calories, especially when they're not tracking and they've been good in their mind. I've been good the whole week. That means over the weekend, doesn't really matter what I eat, I'll be fine. Okay, so let's look at that math. So let's say you were good over the 5 days, good meaning you had 500 calorie deficit per day, right? Over 5 days, that's 2,500 calorie deficit for those 5 days. Awesome, good. But then come Saturday and Sunday, you eat 1,000 calories over your maintenance each of these days, and you just eliminated the whole deficit. So your whole week basically ended up being in maintenance. You won't lose any weight.
Yeah.
Right. And this messes up so many people. They don't know. They're like, I don't know how this happens. What they actually think is, I ate at maintenance over the weekend and I was in a good deficit over the week. I should be losing weight. In reality, they were in a small deficit over the week, small surplus over the weekend. It ended up being balanced, maintenance. They didn't lose any weight, right? And of course, what is the fix for all of this? Track food.
Yeah, be mindful.
It'll literally be poking you in the eye. The numbers don't lie, right? Yeah. When I look at the numbers, I'd be like, I know exactly. You don't have to tell me or send me pictures or, like any of that. I still do that with clients every Friday morning, all over the world. I got, about 20 clients at any one time. People weigh themselves, take pictures and measure body fat percentage, and they update all of that. But looking at their numbers for the week, I already know what the result's going to be, right? Because the numbers just show it, right? If I see that you were in a 500 calorie-ish deficit per day over the week, yeah, you lost a pound of fat. And we can't really accurately measure that, but we can see it, right? Like we can measure it with a fat caliper or something, and then over a stack of weeks of this, it certainly becomes very, very visible and measurable, of course.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to be mindful of the time, because I know I only got you for a short amount of time, and we're diving deep in here. So I got a few questions for you, just rapid fire. We don't got to take too much time for this. I want to urge everyone to we'll give you a chance to be able to connect with Amir, but also check out his book, The Alpha Method. A lot of the information he's talking about is in here. He broke it all down in a very easy to understand way. And well, it kind of gets you a little bit sometimes, but nonetheless, all right. So next, really quick, right? Rapid fire, right? So how does meal timing affect and just entrepreneurs, their energy levels and productivity throughout the day?
Great question. Very little. So meal timing really does not matter for fat loss at all, meaning when you eat or how many meals you have. So meal frequency and meal timing don't matter at all for fat loss, meaning losing body fat and getting leaner. For weight loss, it doesn't matter. Your body literally at the end of the day says, hey, how many calories did you have? This many. Well, this is my maintenance right here. You were in the deficit. You're going to lose weight. I don't care if that number of calories you consume whether that happened over 6 meals, 3 meals, 1 meal, I don't care at all. So for fat loss, it does not matter. For energy, it might matter, and it's very individual, meaning some people simply do better when they have breakfast. Some people do better with no breakfast. Generally speaking, if you control your calories, again, it does not matter at all for anything. However, some people, if they don't eat breakfast, they end up being a lot hungrier later in the day, and they overeat later in the day. On the other hand, some people are like, no, I really like to work in the morning and I'm really not hungry. And in that case, they don't even have breakfast at all. Their first meal is, let's say, lunch, noon-ish or so. Totally fine. That's something I would highly suggest in every one of my clients. I have them test both options for a week, and it becomes pretty clear what is better for them within a week. Right? So we do, like, let's say 5 days of you having breakfast and then 5 days of not having it. And very, very quickly, you're like, yeah, this thing isn't working for me. I really like the breakfast. Awesome, let's have it. Because again, it does not matter. It's just your preference, truly. So it's not a big deal at all. It's just, it is something I suggest to test and then see what works for you. Do that.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because you often hear breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Like, you have to have it. Don't skip breakfast.
Does not have to. Could be, but does not have to be at all. Yeah, it's just very, very, very individual. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Next question. So again, one of the things that come up often is, especially in my journeys, you hear about like portion sizes. So how can entrepreneurs really determine the right amount of food for their needs? And I think you've answered this, just really just through just really knowing what the calorie count is, tracking, and making sure the meals are on point with that.
Yeah. So the actual individual meal size also doesn't matter. You can have, let's say you can have a larger breakfast and then a bit smaller lunch and the smallest dinner, or you can completely turn it around. Again, it doesn't matter. As long as you check total calories, you'll be fine. But one thing that does matter, for weight loss, it doesn't at all. So basically do whatever you want for weight loss. As long as you control total calories, you'll be fine. For people who are lifting weights and trying to maximize the amount of muscle they build from that workout, nutrient timing does matter. Meaning you don't want to be hungry and or, let's say, food deprived prior or after the lifting workout. So that is a rule. Like that is actually significant, and it will impact the amount of muscle you build. So for example, the worst thing somebody can do is go hungry into a lifting workout. It's a terrible idea. So let's say somebody works out at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. early in the morning. They say, I don't like to eat anything. I'm just going to have coffee and water and I'm going to go work out. That is very, very suboptimal option. Why? Because if you don't have any protein in your system, you are going to have more protein breakdown, meaning you're going to break down more muscle and subsequently build less muscle after it. So what I suggest in that case, always have a pre-workout shake made of fast digesting proteins like whey, or there's some plant-based versions that are faster digesting. Have that before the workout. If you, let's say 30, 60 minutes before the workout, if you don't have time to have a real meal. Also, after the workout, you should eat. You shouldn't be hungry and starving yourself after the workout, but it's way less important what you eat after, simply because that window within which your body's building muscle is a lot longer than we taught. Back when I was, in my 16, 17, like teenage years, it used to be called 30-minute window of opportunity.
Yeah.
So Arfan, when you lift weights, 30 minutes after that, you better chug that, protein shake, otherwise you lose all the gains. This is not true at all. That is the most ridiculous thing, or one of them, that this industry has come up with. That window of opportunity, or anabolic window, which is now known as, is for untrained people or people just starting out. It's up to 3 days long. So you do a workout now, up to 3 days after that, your body's building more muscle. For people who are intermediate lifters, let's say have at least 1 to 2 years of lifting under their belt, it's 24 hours long. And then for vast, very, very, very advanced lifters, which is almost nobody, is like 6 or 7 hours, right? So if I work out at 3 to 4 p.m. today, from 4 p.m. until 10 p.m. of that day is the only time when I can build a bit more muscle. So I put a lot more calories and protein into that area, or time frame rather. Yeah. So
that makes a lot of sense.
So for weight loss, it doesn't really matter meal size at all. For when you're lifting, I would have pre and post workout protein boluses. That's actually the most important thing, is to have protein within it. Other things don't matter much. Meaning carbs and fats. Yeah.
When it comes to exercise or lifting in general, what would you say is like the minimum effective dose for busy entrepreneurs, to see improvements in their fitness and or energy levels.
Great question, like really, really good question. The good news is a lot less time in the gym is needed to see results than most people think. Because you don't
Yeah.
need to be a fitness model, you don't need to be a pro athlete. So for vast majority of entrepreneurs, and this is actually vast majority of my clients, 2 workouts per week that are at least 45 minutes long are enough to see huge, huge, huge improvements. Now,
Wow,
is
that's it.
three, yeah, that's it. Like, and if somebody says I don't have two 45-minute slots during the week, I'm like, yes, you do. We need to look at your, schedule and your,
Yeah.
time management and all that, because everybody's spending more than that per day, usually on Facebook and Netflix. And you don't have
Hmm.
two 45-minute time slots over the week. Yes, you do. It's just, it's not a priority. So we need to make it a priority,
Hmm.
right? But
Hmm.
truly, 2 45-minute workouts per week can do wonders when executed. They're doing the right program, executing all of the movements properly, progressively overloading that. Huge, huge, huge improvements can be done in a few months just with that.
Wow, that's awesome. Very good.
Yeah.
Um, what would you say is probably the biggest, most common obstacle that you see entrepreneurs face when trying to improve their fitness, and how can they overcome that?
Well, depends on which area. If it's exercise, if it's nutrition. If it's nutrition, they need to start tracking food. That is the number one thing. Like nothing else will give them. There's no better
Yeah.
ROI on your time and energy invested than tracking your food. That is number one. When it comes to exercise, for longevity, which I mentioned earlier, in order to, an average lifespan of a male is 74. For a woman, it's 78 years. And this is with all the people being overweight, sedentary, unhealthy, terrible diet, terrible sleep habits, high stress. If we fix all that, which can be done in 3 to 6 months, is a transformation period for most people, or at least for my clients. So imagine 6 months from today, we can not only transform you, but we can add 10 to 20 or more years to your natural lifespan.
Mm.
That's pretty
That's a
amazing. That
that's a lot.
excites me. I'm like, okay, Arfan and I statistically would live about 74 statistically. But if
Mm.
we do these things, bearing some kind of my plane crashed or got hit by a car, some freak things, which are statistically not going to happen, we can live to be 95, 100 years old.
Mm.
So what are the things that we need to do that? There are actually only 4. Number one, get lean. If you're a man, get to 15% body fat or less. If you're a woman, get to 25% body fat or less. That's number one. Number two, build a decent amount of muscle by lifting weights. Be strong. Number three, you need to have a at least moderate VO2 max, which is the proxy for a cardiovascular fitness level, which you have to do cardio for that, right? To build muscle, you have to lift weights. To be lean, you have to learn how to diet and control your calories. And then the fourth thing is be overall active. Do 8 to 10,000 steps every day.
Mm.
Interesting piece of data that entrepreneurs may found useful and valuable. Studies have shown that people who do about 10,000 steps a day on average live a decade longer than people who do less than 5,000 steps a day.
Mm.
A decade longer. So
Hmm.
everything else being the same, like nothing changes. The same exact same genes. I mean, literally the same exact person. Start doing 10,000 steps a day. You will add a decade to your natural lifespan. Here's 10
Yeah.
years of life. It's like, wow. If I wasn't doing that and I hear that, I'd be like, let me do 10,000 steps, right?
Yeah.
And that is, about an hour, 15 or so of walking per day. And I highly suggest making that not into 1 hour, 15-minute slot, but rather a
Split it
lot
up.
shorter of these, right? Because the idea is behind it is not steps. The idea behind it is not being sedentary. Being
Mm.
sedentary is so bad and unhealthy that it kills us sooner. Being overall active is so healthy and good that it makes us and helps us live longer, right? So the idea
Hmm.
is be healthy. So that's why when somebody says, well, I'm a really active person, I do, my 30-minute walk once a day and I do my 2 workouts a week. That's cool. That's much better than doing none of these, which most people don't do anything, right? So that's awesome.
Yeah.
However, if you do 2 workouts a week and then you walk for half an hour once a day, but then you sit for 10 hours the rest of the day, I'm not really sure that we can call you active, right? You're not
Hmm.
sedentary, but you're not really that active too. But if you said, hey, I have 5-10 minute walks because I'm kind of constantly moving, okay, now we're talking. Like that is what your
Yeah.
body wants. And just, I always say to my clients, just one thing, like a golden rule is, please remember, as human beings, as species, we were not meant to sit for long periods of time. We're not meant for that. We're not designed for that. We're designed, if we're eating 3 times a day, and let's say we do that for half an hour, which nobody eats for half an hour, but let's say we do, right? And you eat 3 times a day, that's 1.5 hours of sitting per day. And maybe at night, you sit with the family for an hour. Okay, so 2 hours, maybe 3 per day max. Guess how many hours an average person sits today? A lot more than that.
Yeah, 9, 10 hours.
Easily 8 hours, easily, right? Because they go to work, sit. I mean, even entrepreneurs, so I have a standing desk, so I'm standing at my desk. I never sit. And when I get tired, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go either lie down or maybe sit for a short period of time, but we're not designed to sit. So anytime that you cannot be sitting, don't sit. Either lie down, so be in a lying down position, or walk, or move, or do anything else, right? That's not to say never sit. It's just I really try to get my clients not to be sitting for 8 to 10 hours a day or more. So that would be a good rule. Try to not to sit 8 to 10 hours a day or more.
Yeah, for sure.
That's definitely going to kill you. They're way quicker than you could live.
Yeah. I want to add 2 things what you said, because the whole thing about longevity, and you didn't say this, but I think it's it means the same thing in a sense, but there's also adding quality years. It's not just adding another 10 to 20 years of just being
Correct.
unhealthy or not able to do anything, but adding 10 to 20 years to where you're still going to be able to enjoy this timing. Because I don't know if you ever seen a documentary on Netflix, a Blue Zone documentary. One of the big things is that the Blue Zone is everyone who's the concentration of people who are living over 100 years or more. And one of the common things that they walk. They're very active. They walk daily. And another commonality, they do a lot of uphill walking just in the areas they live in. So that
And
adds
actually,
an extra layer of strenuity to it. So
so I went really deep into all of that, and it's very interesting. They do not, on average, they do not exercise at all. They don't have any structured exercise regimen. They don't go to the gym. They don't even know what gyms are. They've never been to the gym. They don't do any sports, like anything that's cardio. They don't do exercise at all. On average, they don't. However, they do a lot of walking. They do a lot of uphill walking, and they just consider that not exercise. They're like, it's just things we do, right? We're on average, they say, they actually on that study, they found that an average person living in blue zones on average moves every 20 minutes all of their waking hours on average. So if you think about that, if you just try to implement that, you would get at least 10,000 steps a day, probably more.
Active.
And that's, and that's one of the things that really helps them be in great health and live that long, is because you can call them anything you want, but not sedentary. They're not sedentary, right? Now, of course, from my perspective, from the scientific perspective and everything I do, I would say if they actually added to everything they're doing, if they added something like a resistance training regimen, like a gym or a body weight or whatever, they would live even longer because they would build more muscle. And we know that muscular strength is one of the biggest predictors of longevity, like literally how strong you are. And for now, we don't have any good references to measure that by. So now they're just going by the grip strength, right? So if you measure your grip strength, they're like, okay, based on that, Arfan is going to live, 10 years over the average stat, right? So for example, if you go to the gym and you get really strong, like actually physically strong, what does that mean? That means you have been active because you've been going to the gym and you built more muscle than an average person, right? And you're now stronger and your immune system is stronger. More muscle means more glucose receptors. You can handle carbs better. You have better insulin control, better blood glucose control, yada, yada. It's like a cascade of events behind it, all good and healthy and allowing you to live longer, right? So that's why, the more muscle you have up to the natural muscular genetic potential, the longer you'll live. So, that's why, the lifting is known as the actual real fountain of youth. It truly is. Like lifting weights. That's the number one thing that I would say. Once somebody has their nutrition down, the number one thing to do is lift weights. Number 3 thing to do some cardio to build good VO2 max. So Yeah,
And that's good news because you mentioned that just twice a week, 45 minutes or so. It doesn't need to be something where you're in the gym every day. If you can find
correct.
something where it's functional, where it's not just split training, where you're working on arms one day, working on triceps another day, can make a big role where you're working out your whole body maybe
Yeah, I would definitely suggest
twice a week.
anybody going to the gym either 2 or 3 times or once, always do full body every time. Right. So somebody says, I work out twice a week, and one time I do arms and the other one I do shoulders. It's like, okay, what's up with the rest of your body? Right.
Yeah,
It's it's like, but guys love training arms. Like that's cool, that's
yeah,
fine, right? But let's have, like you're not training your legs, like you're missing half of your body, meaning half of all the health and other gains, muscle gains that you could have if you just
yeah,
train them during that same time in a gym, right? So it is, to your point, it's very much important how you allocate the time, your exercise. What do you do there, right? It is important to exercise, number one, rather than not exercising. But number two, what you do is also very important. It does matter, right? So your training program does
absolutely.
matter. How you execute a training program does matter as well, et cetera, right? So there's levels to all of this, and it truly, everything matters. Like the
Yeah.
more I do this, the longer I do this, it's like there's science to everything. Like I have my,
Yeah.
I'm a cyclist. So I have my guy who's maintaining my bikes. When I look at him work, I'm like, there's literally everything is a science. Like the way he fixes bikes and all that. Like I can't do that, but that's what he's been doing for 20 years, and he's a pro, right?
Yeah.
So you and I can't fix that. You and I can't fix the car. We can't build a building, whatever. It's a science. Like when we're talking about people who are actually experts in what they do,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah, like a
Everything
skyscraper
is
or even a house, for example.
exactly whatever it is. Like let's say you can run ads the way I cannot, right? Because you have that skill, and there's science to that, there's experience to that, there's knowledge to that. So there's levels to every game, right? So there's
Yeah.
levels to lifting, there's levels to cardio, there's levels to nutrition, just like there's levels to business and scaling and selling and marketing. And I love that. Like I truly love what Hormozy calls the infinite games, right? Like business is an
Mhm.
infinite game. You're never done. And
Yeah.
certainly health and fitness is. Like I sometimes have, a
Mhm.
guy approach me and say, hey man, like you look so good. Why are you here? Like, why am I in the gym? I'm like, dude, because you're never done, right? It's
Yeah.
not like, okay, I reached this level, now I'm good. I don't have to go to the gym ever again. Like I'm there. Like you can't have a meal that's
No, it
so
doesn't
good
work
that you
that
never
way.
need to eat again, right? It just doesn't work that way, right?
Yeah.
It's like there's level to that game, and the game is infinite. It never stops, right? I'll be working out and riding my bike when I'm 95 years old. So, and we'll
Mhm.
probably be doing some kind of business and whatever else, even way past when we didn't need to, because we love the game, right? They're infinite games, and thank God that they are, right? There's no like end point.
Yeah, it's part
So
of our nature now.
yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
So, last two things here. So just kind of looking ahead in your opinion, because you talked about fads, things like that. What trends do you see emerging in the field of like just fitness right now for entrepreneurs, just anyone in general? And what can listeners do to kind of stay ahead of the curve? And then the final thing is, how can the audience get a hold of you? If an entrepreneur is like, hey, I really want to turn this around and I want to work with someone that can give me a customized plan that can really be there to kind of help me navigate the fields and do things in a way that's not just temporary but long lasting. So, what trends are you seeing emerging right now for listeners to watch out for, and then how can we get a hold of you?
Yeah. So the trends, unfortunately, all of the trends, both in marketing and fitness world, are based on usually something that is incorrect or just fraudulent, meaning there's going to be more pills, more fat diets, more fake gurus, more
Mm,
steroid filled idiots are going to be like, oh, just buy my whatever ebook or some kind of whatever, and then you're going to look like me in 3 days. There's going to be more of that. Luckily, I do find that the market, especially entrepreneurs, are getting smarter and seeing through that more. So one thing that I would say to all entrepreneurs listening to this going ahead is please remember principles, the foundational principles never change. If you
mm,
don't control your calories, it doesn't matter what fad diet comes around next month, next year, next decade, and there's going to be a new fad as everybody tries carnivore diet, loses weight and gains it all back and then some. The marketers will invent a new fad. So
mm-hmm,
they're probably going to, this industry from decade to decade goes from carbs are terrible, eat all the fats, to fats are terrible, eat all the carbs. And we've been in the low carb era for 20 years. So it's now time to switch. The next fad, era of probably 10, 20 years, probably going to be fats are horrible. They give you heart disease and kill you. Eat all the carbs because there's nothing else to do for them, right? So the trends are going to be more BS, unfortunately, more pills, more supplements, more fake gurus. So what entrepreneurs need to keep in mind, calories are king. There always will be as long as they're humans. And we need to learn how to control them. It's number one. And then the other trend is, a pill actually did show up that works. And, as a pharmacist, I'm very close to that world of pharmaceutical world. I understand it. I don't like it at all. I'm a pharmacist who doesn't like pills and doesn't suggest any pills. I never take any pills and want all of my clients off all pills. But there is Ozempic, which is semaglutide, which is basically a type of weight loss drug that does work. How does it work? It literally suppresses your appetite, and you can dose it. Like if you take a bigger dose, it suppresses your appetite more. So if I give you a really high dose of that, you can literally never be hungry and not eat at all. Now, of course, and I made a video on my YouTube channel probably a year and a half ago when it just came out and told people what's going to happen. And by the way, please go watch that video and then see what the research is showing now and what I predicted back then. So what I predicted was it works. It worked back then, but just like all medications, the more people take it, the less effective it becomes over time. So what happens when you start upping the dose, and eventually stops working, but all of your bad habits of lifestyle, of eating, not exercising, all of that you had before are still there. What happens? Well, you blow up again, right? So that's number one. Number two, side effects are now showing left and right, all kinds of crazy side effects. However, it's still the most sought after drug because people are like, I can just take a pill and lose weight. Hallelujah, right? And they're willing to pay hundreds of dollars a month for that. Again, to avoid the skill of controlling your calories, right? So those are the trends I see. More BS, unfortunately, and just, always go back to basics, control your calories and you'll be fine. And then pills will probably, there's going to be, just like there is Ozempic now, there's probably going to be 100 versions of Ozempic 10 years from today, right? Because they will not let go. There are billions of dollars to be made in profit from these. And pharmaceutical companies are, I'm sure that they are pumping, trillions of dollars into making more of these. So there's going to be more of that. Those are the trends that I see going forward. And then where people can find me, 7-Figure Body on YouTube. That's my channel. You can also find me by my name, Amir Pozderac, on Facebook. I'm very active on Facebook. And also, guys, if you want to check out my book, I have the book that Arfan showed you. That was my first book. I wrote a second one earlier this year. And you can actually find it at 7figurebodybook.com, 7 as a number, and then 7figurebodybook.com. It's literally $4.95. And I guarantee it's going to be the best $5 you've ever spent in your health. 100% money back guarantee. Anybody and everybody who's ever read it said so, not me. So please go check it out. And there's a bunch of other awesome bonuses that I give you with that book. And it's truly all there. Like there's nothing held back. When you read that book, you will have A to Z. Here's how it's done. So the only thing that you would possibly need, again, along with that is a coaching and accountability. But everything that you need to know about what to do, when, how much, it's all there. Right? You can certainly get the other book that Arfan showed. It's on Amazon. This other book, I'm probably going to have that on Amazon within the next probably week or two. So both are going to be on Amazon. But if you want to get a digital version, check out 7figurebodybook.com.
Awesome. Love that. Amir, thank you again so much for joining us today. If you're, go to 7figurebodybook.com, grab the book. Also subscribe to Amir's YouTube channel, 7-Figure Body on YouTube, and pop over on Facebook if you're on Facebook, and also connect with him there. It's been a wealth of information, and you can probably tell it's a little different than what you're probably used to hearing. Again, thanks so much for being on here. For everyone listening, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review for the podcast, and connect with Amir. And with that being said, we'll catch you all in the next one. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Thanks, buddy. Have a great one. Thank you.